Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
And Abby, too.
And Abby, too.
We're inside because it is very cold and looks like rain. And who says it never rains in Los Angeles?
Well, whoever they are, they don't live here, or they just take it for granted that it doesn't rain very often.
Well, it's cold outside, and it looks pretty dark and stormy.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But, so we can't do a fun little tour today because the weather is poor. And, well, it's not poor, it's just going to be pouring. Sorry, bad pun. But we just thought we'd kind of recap our weekend and our week. We have some things to catch up on. And we're going to talk about maybe some future adventures and get your opinion on it maybe, or suggestions rather. So you want to talk about what happened this week?
Yeah, so I cook for Abigail. I make her homemade dog food. And we did that with Chauncey, who was also a Boston Terrier. He was pretty healthy up until the end of his life. He was 14. And so we cook for Abigail. Well, I cook for Abigail. And I think I went a little overzealous on the cooking because I made it to not her specifications. And you see, we've only had Abigail for almost 3 years, so we're still learning about her and her little quirks. And her quirks is that she wants to eat not healthy organic food, but junk food. Like hot dogs and bologna and things that, people in Arkansas eat. I'm not saying everybody eats like that in Arkansas, but I'm just saying the people that she came from eat like that. And, we don't eat like that. And so
not all the time.
Not all the time. I do like hot dogs. I don't like bologna, but I like hot dogs. And so I made, blended up organic green beans and chickpeas and then put like olive oil in it. And so she didn't want to eat that. And she wouldn't eat for 2 days, which put me and Rob into a spiral. And very, 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 very scared about our dog because we love her a lot. And so on Wednesday, we took her to the vet, and $500 later, literally $500 later, she's just fine. She's just picky.
Yeah.
She's picky.
Yeah.
She had good blood work, and she had an IV of saline. They gave her some saline under the skin, and I gave her anti-nausea pills, and she still wouldn't eat anything until we came home, and I made her mashed potatoes and chicken, and then she ate it, and then the next morning she was like, no, I don't like that.
Well, when I did get home, sorry not to interrupt you, but when I got home from the vet, I did give her some of the Diet Hills canned food that they gave us.
Yeah.
They sold us rather. She did eat some of it.
She was probably pretty hungry.
She was pretty hungry, so I got her to eat some of that. And later that night, that afternoon before I picked up Ashley from work, then she did, her usual constitution on her walk. So. She was just being very picky, and it cost us, but it was, one of those situations we didn't know what was going on, but she was not exhibiting any...
Oh, yeah, she was acting her own self,
yeah.
And on Thursday, she was all kind of yipped a little bit, and I think it's because she got shots, and it was kind of tender,
yeah.
And I panicked. And I told Rob, take her back to the vet and let's get x-rays that were $600. So this is going to be like $1,100 situation at this point.
Yeah.
And then I was on the phone with Rob's aunt, and all of a sudden Abigail started getting into her little toy basket and thrashing her toys around and running around and barking. And I'm like, wait, this isn't a sick and dying dog. So let's just wait this out. And sure enough, she ate her dinner. She ate her food. We had 3 different types of food out in bowls for her.
Yes. There was quite the buffet for this little thing, and she's still kind of on the picky side.
Yeah.
She's still being very picky, but once she gets hungry enough, she does go and eat her food.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
she's just going to have to get over that.
Now we have to put shredded Parmesan cheese on her food. Not Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese.
Well, that does make everything a little better.
It does, but now, like, she won't eat it. She, like, waits until I take the bag out of the fridge, and then she sees me put it on there, and then she comes over to eat. So, I mean, this just started because I wanted her to eat. But now she's like, I want cheese on my food all the time now.
Yeah,
so.
there's kind of no going back once that door's kicked open, so, yeah. Oh, well. Oh, well. We'll just have to figure it out, I guess, until she figures something that she likes. But picky little Boston Terriers.
And sassy.
It's a thing.
It
really is a thing.
And she's sassy. She's a sassy girl.
Yeah, this is true. I guess we kind of deserve a sassy dog.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense if you really think about it. But what else we have going on? I had a car show yesterday morning at Moon Eyes annual holiday party. Was held at the Irwindale Speedway, and that was a fun thing. I did have to get up extremely early at 4 a.m. to queue up with my car club that I belong with, the Gem City Mobsters, and it's a fun, very modest club, but it's quality guys. And we drove down there, which isn't very far from Monrovia, and we got in line and got in very in a timely manner. The last year I went, it was a train wreck. It was absolutely annoying. Too many cars. They weren't letting them in as fast. They only had one guy checking the tickets, so you had 1,000+ cars, one at a time, with one guy checking the tickets. It was ridiculous. But this year they had 3 lanes, 3 people checking tickets in, and it was a lot smoother. We got a parking spot, and we set up our little area for our club, and it was great. It was a perfect day. The temperature was ideal. It got up to about 70, 71, and it was sunny, and it wasn't hot, and saw a lot of great cars. Saw a few friends that I know, or that we know, that have a rockabilly band, and it was just a really nice day. She's really not a morning person, neither am I, so she stayed in bed with the dog.
I was in a semi-coma at 4
Yeah,
a.m.
she was, and I was, of course, quiet and sipped my coffee and then got my things ready. I already had packed the car the night before and got everything ready to go, so all I had to do was pull the car out, warm it up, and drive over there. So, but it was good. It was a nice show. I did see some nice classics, and so I came home around 2:30, yeah, it was just perfect. It was great. I took a nap, and then
we
later
went to
that
a birthday
afternoon,
party.
yeah.
My good friend and pal Marnie, she had a birthday party, and the theme was early 2000s, which I was born in 85, and so in 2000 I was 15. So I haven't always been vintage. I liked old stuff. I just didn't understand it. I don't understand why I liked old stuff. Like, the movie Titanic came out in 97, and I really liked that movie. But I didn't understand why I liked it. I just liked it because maybe, like, the clothes or the story or whatever, but I didn't, like, really grasp the historical context of it or whatever. And so we went to the thrift shop on Friday, and I got a pair of cargo pants from The Gap. I remember wearing these type of pants when I was like 13, 14 years old. And a top. I basically dressed the way that I wasn't allowed to dress when I was that age. So, like, think of, like, MTV and TRL. That's what I was wearing. Actually, when we arrived at Marnie and Dylan's house, I knocked on the door. I was like, is this the TRL audition? Because I thought it was pretty funny. But anyways.
It did go over quite well.
Everyone liked it.
Yeah.
But then there were people, like normies, that were there that were normal dressed, and they were looking at me like I don't know. It was weird. I was like, wait, I don't dress like this all the time. This is just because I like a costume party. I mean, I love a costume party. Like, any event to dress up like that, I'm on it.
Yes,
and so
I
was like, wait, I don't dress like this all the time. Like, I dress like 30s and 40s. This is just a fun thing for a party. One day, when your grandchildren are my age, 2000s clothes will be vintage. And that is terrifying.
It is. And it's funny because in 2001, 2002, I was dressing 40s style Way clear before that. By the mid 1990s, I got into this hobby and this fashion sense or lifestyle, if you will. But yeah, I'm just like, what was I wearing in the early 2000s? Oh, right, I was wearing the same thing. But anyways, I did kind of go a little more 2001 mainstream. So that was fun, but it was a great little party. Lots of good pizza and drinks and everything, and it was good company.
Yeah, ice cream cake. Who can say no to an ice cream cake?
I know, I've never.
And I forget that, because, like, I love ice cream. There's a place in Pasadena called Salt and Straw. It's my favorite. They have, like, fancy flavors.
It is pretty good.
But there's also a Baskin-Robbins up the street from us. And sometimes we'll go over there. And I don't know, I always pick the fruity ice cream or whatever. But, cookies and cream is magical. Like
you can't beat a classic.
And to invoke a 2000s slang, it's thebomb.com.
Well, you just did that, didn't you?
I did. I was waiting.
That. Oh yes. Well, even though we like our vintage lifestyle, we are very much aware that it is the 21st century. So
I mean, we're on YouTube. We have a computer.
Indeed, we are. So
we can't be that pure.
We can't. No, there's definitely a line.
Otherwise, if you should be living underground in a bunker with no social media and nothing. That like the Blast from the Past, that movie.
Oh,
like
with
the
Brandon
the
Fraser,
90s.
yeah.
Like that. If you want to be a real purist, no phone, no TV, no internet, then you got street cred, in my opinion.
Well, that or you're cutting yourself off from some good things. Yeah. I think there's I mean, most of the people that watch us are collectors. They understand they get it. You guys get it. Whether you're subscribers to my channel with the lanterns and stuff, we all understand there's a draw for earlier goods, home goods, tools, or vintage styles or anything like that. Because, well, I mean, contemporary styles they don't impress us or really for that much. But the vintage stuff is definitely fun to collect and enjoy and well decorate with. Of course, it's a little different. But it's quality goods. They were made very well. I mean, they just can't get that quality anymore. So we all understand why we're here. But it's good to take advantage of the advancements of certain technologies.
Well, and also too, I think it's really important to think about is that probably, I mean, fashion has evolved.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's been every decade has had some sort of impactful fashion palette or something, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean, even if you go back to the 80s, you think about the 80s and you think of what makes you think the 80s, like Madonna and just bright colors and things like that. And then you go to the 90s and you still can kind of like LA Gear, Reebok, acid wash jeans, things like the evolution of fashion. And then even in the early 2000s, there was fashion there. There was things that were iconic to that time period. And now, there's nothing Pilates pants, yoga pants. You basically hoodies. You have people leaving their houses wearing athletic gear, tight pants. Look, I mean, I like yoga pants. I sleep in them sometimes. I mean, I do not sleep in vintage pajamas because I thrash in my sleep, and these pajamas are already pretty old, so I don't want to destroy them. I only wear them on special occasions.
Well, of course. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, there's really, we're not trying to degrade anybody that has their own ideas of comfort and fashion. Of course not. We're just simply commenting that there really seems to be a lack of distinction between 2000 and 2023.
I mean, that was 23 years ago. 2000 was 23 years ago.
Well, yes. I mean, it's kind of scary because I remember 2000 quite well. And I like to think of it maybe as more like 10 years ago, but it's not. And for all intents and purposes, there's certain trends that do change, but I think the growing interest, well, currently with the vintage trends, it's not this stuff anymore. It really isn't pre-World War II or even 50s. It's 1980s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that is the hot trend amongst most vintage. Well, most people that go out and seek vintage clothing, that's what they're buying because they're mostly people that were born just before 2000 or after, and so the nostalgia or interest and intrigue for vintage is definitely late 1900s, so the 80s and 90s, and for people like us, that's not too long ago for especially me.
Speak for yourself.
I am.
I'm only 18.
But anyways, it's fun to see people get interested in different decades for whatever reason, and it's funny to comment on that because in the 1950s, what were people interested or intrigued by? It was the 1920s.
Yeah.
And there was a whole 1920s revival that started coming up in the mid to late 1950s that lasted clear into the early 60s. Think of the movies Anti-Mame and a few other movies that came about that had a strong 1920s aesthetic or period. And then by the 1970s, you had films like
Great Gatsby,
The Sting was a big one, and also Bonnie and Clyde, and of course, so the 20s and 30s were definitely very popular.
And then the 80s, it was like 1941, where it was a big 40s thing.
There was a huge 40s thing because the war was only 40 years ago, and then by the early 90s, it was 50th anniversaries all through the decade of World War II. So, I mean, as time goes on, it's usually a 20 to 30 or 40 year gap between the interests and the revivals that come up, and it's fun to notice that. It's interesting to note that humankind has always had an eye
for the old
looking
days.
back.
Well, and even I would say and there's like hats and kind of like details in women's clothing in like the mid to late 30s that had very much like a medieval look to it, like hats, like snoods. Snoods were really popular in the 40s, but snoods, actually, women were wearing those like hairnet snoods. And I've seen them in like, the Renaissance period.
Tudor period, too. Yeah, absolutely.
There was a lot of like those collars that were kind of like Elizabethan collars. I mean, of course, they were stylized more to be fashion and not out of necessity.
Right.
But, there was a lot of that kind of look, which is very intriguing to me. And I actually will gravitate towards that kind of stuff because I think it's really fascinating. But also like late 30s, you can see some of like late 30s, early 40s, you can see kind of like peplums, which is kind of like iconic of like bustle dresses.
Yes.
I actually have like a Bullocks Wilshire gown that I got from Nicole at Paper Moon Vintage, and it's beautiful halter top, like a halter dress, and it's a gown, and it has like a bustle in the back, and it's really cool. And I know, like, if anybody has seen the movie The Women from 1939, there's a sequence of a fashion show, and there's a lot of kind of Victorian looking gowns that Adrienne designed. I mean, not all of them, and of course they're stylized to look of the with a modern touch. And even
it's a
like
fusion for sure.
Yeah, and even like with the movie Gone with the Wind. I mean, we're talking like the Civil War, 1860s. That it's like the Civil War meets 1939. So I mean, it's amazing how you can be in a time period like the 30s, late 30s, and then you'll have fashion that was from 70 years prior.
So. Of course. Well, it's funny because we were watching a 1934 film called Fashions in 1934. Stars Betty Davis, a very young Betty Davis, and William Powell, and a few other in the cast. But the thing that I noticed about that film was that they were showing how the most current trends from Paris were actually being designed by fictitious designers in Paris, because of course they couldn't name actual designers, but they were showing a little bit into the fashion world that the most newest fashions were upcycled fashions from the Renaissance and from the 1600s and the 1700s. So they were showing this one designer at a flea market, and he was buying old fashion plates from that era, and he was taking a lot of cues from the earlier periods. And it's interesting to also point this out rather, that a lot of the men's fashion of those times were being used in women's fashion. So you would have men's frocks and hats and stuff, but the hats reduced in size and the frocks stylized, and other, of course, different details added to make it suitable for a lady to
Like
wear.
a fedora, a lady's fedora.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's like a man's hat.
Yeah.
They stylize it. I mean, we're going to the Air Raid next month, the Great Los Angeles Air Raid at Fort MacArthur Museum in San Pedro, California. Next February 25th, we're gonna be doing a little video there, and that should be pretty fun for our channel, I think.
I think so.
But I'm actually wearing a 40s lady suit that's pinstriped, so it's almost like, it's very iconic. It's like almost like men's fabric, and I'm wearing a pink blush colored felt fedora. I mean, that's like, man, that's kind of men's fashion, you know, so it's pretty cool. And, you know, speaking of men's fashion, a long time ago, I bought a Irene. I don't know if anybody knows the designer Irene. She was a very famous designer. She made costumes for movies, and then she had her own private label. And I actually have one of her suits, but I had one prior to this one, and it was post-war. It was really cool because the fabric was beautiful. It was like slate gray with like red pinstripe or maroon pinstripe. It was beautiful, but the suit was massive. Like, I think it must have been for a very tall woman because it just engulfed me.
It was a little big on you.
It was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, like, literally it went to probably my mid calf of the skirt, and it just, you know, it was very big. And it, you know, I'm small, but I'm tall. I'm 5'6.5", and so you can kind of, and I was wearing platform 40s heels with that. So it was a pretty big suit. I don't have it anymore. I have a much better suit, same label, Irene, fits me better. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how during the war, you know, women would, you know, take their husband's old suits, turn them into something that they could wear, because, you know, and I think that's really cool. Like, that's innovative, and there's like basically like recycling, which, I mean, today we don't do that. Our clothing is disposable. Not our clothing, but
contemporary
fashions is very much disposable. I went to Savers, a thrift shop in big superstore in Arcadia, and it's just full of clothes, racks and racks and racks, and they're just getting all kinds of donations. And I'm like, you know, it's crazy. I don't think there's enough people to buy all this used clothes. You know,
it's true, and they do eventually bundle up this stuff into huge bales and ship it across the oceans to other countries that are that don't have the luxury of brand new clothes. So a lot of them do get recycled.
A lot of them don't, unfortunately. They also end up in the dump, or you know. So
exactly.
And then all the, you know, the fast fashion of like just turning it all around, like all the byproduct. You know, it's the dyes and the sourcing and the labor and all that. I mean, it's kind of, that's why I love vintage, not only because of the fashion and the quality, but it's not, you know, the person who made this outfit is gone. Like, they were probably adults, made in the United States, whatever. You know, now all the clothes are coming from, you know, third world countries, kind of made by kids, and that's really not okay, in my opinion.
Well, it is an unfortunate side effect of, you know, big business and the fashion industry and a lot of other things that we enjoy today. It is unsavory, and it's, you know, just what it is right now, I guess. I mean, it's, if things are made in a different country, it's hard to regulate. But I mean, don't want to get political.
Yeah.
That's what we're not trying to do. But
I don't buy new clothes, only if it's like, you know, things like underwear.
Well, there's something to be said about fresh unmentionables. Yeah, you definitely want to do new for that.
Yeah.
But anyways, friends, time is waning, and we are going to wrap this session up, but definitely keep an eye peeled for next week. We're going to be trying to figure out what we're going to do. So
we're going to go to Pasadena.
Pasadena?
Yeah.
You want to do Pasadena? Maybe we'll do a drive through Pasadena and show some particular points of interest in history of the City of Roses. So stay tuned for that. And of course, we will be doing a brief video at the air raid on the 25th of February. So with that being said,
remember, like, share, and subscribe.
Only if you like your these videos, okay?
Because Mommy and Daddy have to pay for that $500 vet bill. Just kidding. We love you.
It's true, we do. All right, friends. Well, till next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.